This is the Council Committee meeting of March 17th, 2015. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I've got a few items I wanted to discuss, but I also would rather turn it over to the committees. So I would say it would be your preference if you'd rather me talk in the beginning or at the end. So with that, then I guess we would go ahead and turn it over to the Public Works Committee. Mr. Cahill, Mr. Skidmore.
I think Mr. Bogart has something on his phase out front here.
Oh yeah, Mr. Cahill's not going to be here this evening. I'm sorry. Is this something, Rick, you want to go ahead and lead this?
Yes, sir. How are y'all this evening?
Great. How about you?
Great. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We're here to discuss Phase 3 of the Donaldson Beautification Project. It is the third of 5 planned phases with this project. It is in the current budget for this year. I've got Allison Chadwell with Vioxx and Vioxx and Carter Dickerson with Vioxx and Vioxx, both part of the design team. They're going to come up and discuss the bids that we received yesterday, and we'll be making the formal recommendation to award it at the first council meeting in April. So, come on up, Allison.
Hi, I'm Carter Dickerson from Vioxx and Vioxx. Happy to be here on behalf of the city engineer, Jim Vioxx. As Rick mentioned, we did open bids on Phase 3 of the Donaldson Beautification Project. This is a project that we're very excited about. We've made an impact already through Phase 1 with street trees and sidewalk improvement and infrastructure improvement, and now we have Phase 3. We opened bids, and we had 2 bidders on this project, JPS Construction and TMS Construction. The low bidder is TMS Construction at a base bid of $180,111.25, and 2 alternate bids of $28,037.50 and $97,160.50 for a total of $309,25. That is the low bidder. JPS Construction was the high bidder at a base bid of $219,151.60, with 2 alternates, alternate 1 being $43,064 even, and $102,900.10, for a total bid of $365,115.70. This project is an economic a project that we hope will continue the economic stimulus of the city of Erlanger, as well as achieving the goals of improving the beautification of the entry to Erlanger, as well as improving the safety of both pedestrians and vehicles that travel as they enter the city of Erlanger. So there's also a connection to the Dixie Highway Streetscape project that we completed a couple of years ago, from Graves to Price, and then also on to Ellesmere. We have incorporated similar design features in both of the projects. The brick stamp pattern is a design feature, as well as a slate stamp pattern. Both of those features are also in this Dixie Highway and the Erlanger Gateway Beautification Program. So if there's any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them, and we'll be here for you. Thank you.
I do have a question, Carter.
Yes.
What were the 2 options, the 2 alternates?
That's a good question. The 2 alternates are for the improvements on the west side of the interstate. One of them is the addition of a median, basically a divider at the light at the base of the off-ramp. This is a place where we have a lot of cars that attempt to turn left and had east on Donaldson, and there's been a history of traffic accidents there. So we're constructing this median that extends into the intersection. You can see it here. So it's the long, slender median just north of the big triangle. As you can see, it extends into the intersection, and we'll also have those flexible divider sticks, posts, that will serve as a visible barrier. So if cars are not paying attention to the red light, they'll see that and not attempt to make that left turn. That is alternate number 1. Alternate number 2 is for what is called the Gore Island. That's the large triangular island. It's currently completely falling apart, a hazard and not much of a barrier anymore. And we're going to reconstruct that with a lip curb, which basically allows large trucks to be able to pull up on it and not destroy their wheels and last a long time. So,
Okay, great, thank you.
thank you. Yes.
Does this project extend all the way down to Houston Road?
It does. The entire scope of the, yes, from Houston to Baker. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looks like next up is the Administration Committee.
We've got information about the termination of non-elected officers, and this is basically just an informational hearing, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark Peels if Mark has some questions or answers for us. Greatly appreciate it, Mark.
Oh, thank you. I was just talking to Mr. Gatlin outside. We had a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about the ordinance and how to update the ordinance. We put together, the leadership team did a few ideas about what that Section 2 could maybe say, taking it out of some of the things that Mr. Wickman had written before, took some things right out of Chapter 95, looking at it. So I think we're working towards coming up with a final, or coming up with at least an initial draft of an ordinance that's not ready by any means right now to be discussed tonight. Those were some ideas that the leadership team got together, and think that if we include some of those things in there, basically what we want to see, and this is a different direction, is just a due process hearing, okay, that's held by the executive authority for that, what those charges would be against them. And of course, you all on your side want to be notified, I'm sure, of what those are, when that's going to be, those kind of things. I think that what we have seen in the past occur here is that communication wasn't there, or that lack of knowledge wasn't there, and that probably caused more dissension than anything else. So having that part in there is what I'm sure you all probably want. But we were just talking outside, so that's informational. On the front sheet of that is the positions that we would suggest be the non-elected officials. If we look back through our past ordinances, there are several within the city that are already, that ordinances have been passed for. But over time, some of those titles have changed. I'll give you an example, because Codes Administrator / Public Works Superintendent, still on the books in the ordinance, is one of our non-elected city officials or city officers. That position, if everybody remembers, was a position that Dave Hahn held before he retired. And when he came back, we did not change that to the Economic Development Director, Codes Administrator. We did not change that to be one of the non-elected officials. So that first page is more housekeeping than anything else. That is the first 4 bands on our salary scale, our wage scale. Those are the top 4. Those are the positions in this city that have the most responsibility, that are supervising more people than anybody else. Those are the ones that are running the day-to-day operations of this city. And if you look at what a non-elected official is, it's that. State law says that it's the police chief, fire chief, city clerk, and city administrator and or city manager, or the city then can add to that and declare their own. And that's what we're asking, just to do that. That's just food for thought also for you all. The second page is the wage scale, I think. And then the third part is what the leadership team got together. And of course, I had a meeting yesterday with the mayor and Mr. Gatlin, and we talked about this a little bit, working through this. So this was a starting point for us. The leadership team is all on board with, in fact, those points that we've given you tonight. So just so you know that. And so you know, on that ordinance that exists today, and I believe it is now in Section 3, it talks about all of the other employees of the city that are not non-elected officials and what the process is there. Just to let you all know, that process flows through the personnel officer. The personnel officer for the city has been designated as the city administrator. So, you know, we believe that that provides that protection, or if you want to say due process, for our line employees. Also, when you're looking at the other side of it, on the police and fire side, 95, Chapter 95 and Chapter 15, most of you sitting in here have gone through those hearings that we have put on, so you know what those protections are. If you don't, call me and we can look, or just look up those two, because those two statutes will cover most of that. So, wanted to give you an update tonight, since at the last council meeting this got put here, talking about it. I don't mean to speak for the mayor, but I know the conversations that we've had, we are in no hurry to get this accomplished. Am I speaking correctly?
Yeah, I agree.
We're in no hurry to get this completed right now. We have time to work through this and figure out the direction that we're going. There's not a dire need to get this ordinance passed very shortly. I don't see one.
Yep.
So,
I don't either.
yes, sir.
Just so I'm clear, I know we got the KRS that protects police and fire.
Yes, sir.
And this ordinance will protect non-elected public officials, then we'll have a second ordinance, our existing ordinance protects.
If you look at the existing ordinance right now, that third section in that existing ordinance talks about all the other employees, and that how they cannot be terminated without the written recommendation of the personnel officer, which then will go back into our termination policies and that process that we work through for each of those.
So if we adopt these, then basically all the employees will be protected in the sense of there has to be some level of due process given them.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Are we going to have something written in this ordinance that talks or addresses the formal complaints in a person's personnel file? Because I think that was another problem we had with another employee that was terminated. The press, and we were told there was nothing in the personnel file, that there was never a complaint made, and so we're at the mercy. I mean, citizens come and they ask us, what the heck's going on, and we don't know.
Well, I think, if in fact there is an evidentiary hearing, then evidence would be put on in that hearing. And part of that, then there would be some written conclusion as to what that evidence was and what the decision was based on to terminate. So something in somebody's file, probably not. If there's something that exists in my personnel file today, then that's open records that anybody can get. If I had been disciplined for whatever, I'll even go and tell you. The only thing that's ever been in my personnel file, I was in Dunkin' Donuts at 3 o'clock in the morning with another officer one time, and the city administrator drove by and saw me, and I got read up for that. But that exists today. It's still in there. But my point is, whatever's in that personnel file, would then, I think, probably, if it's being used as evidence in that termination hearing, would become part of that hearing. So yes, it would be in that written report, or there'd be a summary of what that was.
That you might have to act on that. But what I'm saying is, if you just arbitrarily say, with this person, that's a non-elected official, that there should be a pattern there. You can't just arbitrarily say, hey.
And I think that's what the hearing would do.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's four, Mark, can you cite that off the top of your head, the four?
They would all come back to inefficiency, misconduct, insubordination, or a violation of law or rules that have been adopted by the city. Those are the four reasons that you can terminate somebody, reprimand somebody, or do anything. And those come directly out of the KRSs when it talks about that and about what you can terminate for. Well, then there's another, well, if you read that ordinance, and I don't know if you all have it in front of you or not, but there's another part of it about, failure to do your duty in the position that you're in. And that's the whole part of it, and that's going to be the documentation part that I think that you're referring to. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just got, when it does come back to that effect for city council, that will go into executive session, right? It won't be public, it'll fall into public executive session, right?
Well, that's something, and that's part of the discussion about the ordinance and what it would be. To be quite honest, and we've had these hearings before, okay? Those hearings before, it was up to the employee whether they wanted to make that hearing public or not public. It's not up to us whether to do that or not. Now, it's up to that employee whether they want it to do. Whether or not, how we set up that hearing and what it is. If that hearing is with the executive authority, then the council would have absolutely no role in that, okay? So making it public, I don't understand the question.
Well, I don't
An
want
executive session, I don't think so. I mean, it wouldn't be any kind of
I'm
that.
just saying, it's KRS going into executive session that has to deal with the employee discipline.
Hey, right.
It can, yeah.
Right, executive sessions for that, right. And I think maybe, that's something that if in fact the mayor was going to, or the executive authority was going to foul charges and try to terminate somebody, then I think that, however he conveys that to the council, whether that be through executive session and what they were doing in those discussions, that might be the proper venue to do that, something like that.
All right, well, I was just kind of curious here to get some clarification there, so.
And that's more of an attorney question than it is my question, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I think we began to work on some verbiage there that, we could have a circumstance where a termination could be understood and agreed upon by everybody, and it wouldn't necessarily have to go to a hearing necessarily. And but I think Jack had worked on some verbiage there that said that. Do you want to talk?
Yeah, our biggest concern is that everyone's afforded due process under the law.
Right.
That's the biggest thing we want to make sure.
Sure, absolutely.
City of Maryland doesn't get sued. That's, as the attorney, that's goal number one. So, really what we're trying to do is to kind of dot our I's and cross our T's on the due process part of it, and then inform council as to what is taking place. That's the overall goal. We're tweaking several different ordinances. We just met yesterday. We have some ideas, and we just kind of want to follow some of the same procedures that are already in place for fire and police. Those are fairly rigorous due process procedures.
Okay.
For non-elected officials.
Right.
Yeah, that would not necessarily be for the line employees. That's a different set of procedures. It's quite frankly a little similar. But
Mark, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but when Chief Sandel was the chief, we went into some kind of meeting with Mayor Otto, and it was about employees, and they weren't like, top persons here. And we did discuss it. He told us what the problem was, and he said, I don't really have to confer with you, but I would like your advice. Did we go into executive session for that, or was that just a meeting of just council and mayor? The Chief Sandel was there. Does anybody else remember that? No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm the old one here, so. But, I just really appreciate the fact that he shared it with us, and hopefully nobody on council would go out and blab whatever, because that's supposed to be, that's the purpose of the executive session, that you don't talk about it, but I know you can only do executive session for certain things.
And I know we have gone into executive session before when there were disciplinary issues that we took care of inside the police department when I was the police chief. And we had discussed those.
Built, so it was the old building. I know it's been a long time ago, but I was just curious how we handled that, and he just took our advisement, and that was kind of cool.
There's one other thing I would like to say, because some of you have approached me with this, and I just want to say this. Greg and I were talking. I've been approached by a few of you asking about changes to the budget and making suggestions, and I have referred you to the mayor and said, please take those suggestions to the mayor. However, it is possible for you all to change the budget, of course, if you want to. What we would ask is if, in fact, that you, so on a staff level, what we would ask is that if, in fact, you do have some changes that you would like to make, additions, deletions, whatever that you would like to do, I would like to suggest that we hold a committee meeting in April and that those are discussed in this room and we get them done. If we wait, what we don't want to end up with, and we've never had before, and I really don't want to see us going down this path, is that if in fact we get to have the first reading of this ordinance and then all of a sudden we want to make changes to it, and that occurs in May or June, and then all of a sudden we're having special meetings to adopt a budget.
Right.
So, if we have a meeting, please, a need for it, please get with the mayor, and, then we can talk about any of those things. You all can hash those out, maybe at a committee meeting in April, so that we can go forward with the final document and have that ready in May, so that you can have the first reading of a budget in May, the second reading in June, so that we're ready to go when it comes July 1st. If not, what we end up with is a continuation of the existing budget and what we're doing, and then we're having to do amendments and things like that, so.
I was planning on doing that at the April meeting to ask if we could put it on the committee for April.
Oh, okay.
So.
Instead of had it, because I know several of you have asked me about that and come in and had some discussions, and so yes, that's possible, but let's do it like that if we possible. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for working through this. All we've ever wanted from the get-go, and we've talked about that, is for you to communicate with us. We are not the enemy. We're not the enemy, but we have been left out, totally. And feel like everything's been done behind our backs and behind closed doors. And, those of us that have been around for 1,000 years, Hey, I've been on just as long as you have, you old fart. So, I get my 35-year pin in October if I don't drop over dead of a heart attack first. But all we want is to be respected, and you don't have to listen to a damn thing we have to say, but give us the opportunity to say.
Thank you, Patty.
Well, thank you. I really mean that, Mr. Gatlin. Thank you.
I would ask the same, and I know there's kind of an expectation that I know a lot of you have been here for a long time, and I have not been. And I think there's kind of an expectation that I'm just going to walk in and have all the knowledge that you guys have and the process and the expectations for communication.
Actually,
and I don't.
Actually, that's not true, Tyson, at all.
Well,
but the way that things went about, the way Frank was disgraced and humiliated, and that it hurt him. It hurt all of us deeply. Mm-hmm. And if you've got your reasons, that's great. And you don't need our permission, but we deserve the respect for you to tell us what the hell you're doing and why. We deserve that.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
The only point I was going to make was it's kind of like a pothole, and if someone gets so upset about a pothole that's in front of their house and they're so tired of looking at it that they finally decide to move out of the city. And when we ask them, why did you move out of the city? They said, because of this pothole in front of our house. And
that's
we say,
pretty pathetic.
Well, I'm just saying. Just hear me out. If a lot of times I've heard people in the city say, well, we don't know about it unless you tell us. I feel the same way on a lot of other issues. I feel like if we can open up the communication both ways, You can't always pin it on me for not talking to you. It has to go both ways. So sometimes I don't necessarily understand what you might be thinking, but if you'll share it with me, then I think we can.
But I still disapprove of your one-on-one behind closed door meetings, sir. We are a team here. This whole city is a team.
Right.
You included, if you want to
Absolutely.
be on the team. Otherwise, we can all be fighting you
I'm
for
on
the
the
next
team.
4 years.
I'm on the team, whether
I don't want
whether you
that.
want me to or not.
I don't want that. So, you know, I'm hearing over the weekend that you've hired an attorney before, we've even discussed this issue with Frank and trying to, we can't trust you with the decisions that you've made for the whole community because you haven't included us. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay.
And I am happy to meet with, I have never said that, Patty. You've put those words into my mouth. I've never said I would only meet with people one-on-one. I'm happy to meet with groups less than a quorum. If it's more than a quorum, all I've said is that it has to be. I gave you a chance to talk. Can you give me a chance to finish, please?
You know that you could have a special meeting called, and I don't care if every citizen in the city of Erlanger comes to that meeting. You can publish it, you can have us sign in, we can all be blood brothers. You could meet with us as a committee, as a team, as your city council, as a whole, and be open and upfront with us. You have not done that, sir, and you're not willing to do it to this day. And I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Well, can I address the one thing you talked about over the weekend? Do you mind if I go ahead and address this? As everybody's aware, that I had terminated Mr. Wickman's contract on February 5th. And since that time, we have reviewed requests for proposals. We've had interviews. On March 5th, I had a meeting with Mr. Wickman and Mr. Blankenship to try to come to an understanding of what some of the concerns were, and so we could try to address them, opening up that line of communication. I'm listening. I'm open. I'm not shut out to the ideas. A week later, on March 12th, I received the first draft of some of the agreements that we're trying to come to here. And I felt like there was a pretty good distance between what I was envisioning and what was drafted. At that point, I went ahead and signed an agreement with Mr. Gatlin because we have city business that needs to be addressed by an attorney. There are foreclosures, there's ordinances, and there's day-to-day things that have to be addressed by the city. And they can't operate, nor do I want them to operate without a contract, some kind of agreement. Mr. Gatlin was very open to the idea of that is not set in stone. It was something just so we could get things done and keep proceeding with city business. So it's still not set in stone. We're still talking, we're still negotiating. Mr. Gatlin is still open to that being changed. It is not the verbiage in that contract is that can be terminated at any time. Okay, we have not incurred any costs. We have not gotten any billing on that contract. Okay, so I think there was a big red flag that was thrown out there that I was moving along without people. My intention was not to try to usurp the judgments and the negotiations. It was merely to keep city business moving forward.
I think what Patty's trying to say is it'd just be nice if you tell us that instead of us finding out on the streets.
Yep.
That's what we're upset about. Every time you do something, we find out from citizens and not you. And that's very hard to take.
Right, okay, I hear you. Thank you.
Embarrassing. I mean, we were elected by the city, and to go out, and in my work, a lot of people are from Erlanger, and have them come up to me at school and say, what's going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? And then find out from somebody else,
Yeah,
hey, we got a new attorney. Like,
yeah,
"You do?"
it is embarrassing.
I mean, that's embarrassing to me. It almost makes me look like a fool, like I have no idea what's going on in this city, that I'm supposed to be here serving, you know? And that's, I think that's where a lot of us are coming from. Somehow we're not communicating that correctly. But I mean, that's my thing. And I mean, I don't mean any disrespect to you, because that was also in the papers, and people say, I don't know who said it, but somebody said we don't respect the mayor. I don't know if it was you or just somebody quoting you in the paper.
I wouldn't have said that.
But I resent that. I mean, I don't feel like I've disrespected anybody. If I disrespect you, by golly, you're gonna know it, you know? You will. I mean, you would know that, but I'm professional and I don't do that. But there's just little comments in the paper every once in a while that just really bug me, you know? It's like, we need to get over that. It's almost like we've got a scab and we keep covering over it, and then we find out something else happened, and it's like, what? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, because we all want to work together. Erlanger, I mean, this is our city, and we want it to progress and be, we all have the same idea. We all want it to be better. We're not up here for our own personal gain. At least I'm not. I'm not
either.
Money coming to the table anyway. I'd be out of here, you know. I spend a lot of time on this job. But we're all after the same goal. But if we don't work together, and if people see us all at each other's throats, it's going to be like, look at the city of Erlanger. Somebody came up to me the other day and they says, you're the new Villa Hills. You know how embarrassing that is? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just, it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. It really does. I don't like that. And I don't like to fight. But I would appreciate just things being shared with us.
Before the fact would be nice.
You can't, if they're, you know, personal or whatever. But I'm just saying, anything that you could possibly share with us, that shows that you trust us. Because your very first meeting, you called us non-transparent. That hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher in Catholic school, and I think I'm very transparent. For my students to read that in the paper, it's about, how come you're not transparent? I'm like, I am transparent. I share everything. I don't have anything to hide or put under the table. But I mean, that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what you're saying, but those are little digs that people take personally. Just for what it's worth, that's what upset me.
Thank you. I hear you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, I'm ready. Codes, Building, and Zoning. The first topic is zoning change request for property at Turkeyfoot and Stevenson. And I'll let Mr. Dave Hahn talk about that.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is a request. I got a call from the owner of the property, and Mr. Bob Martin sitting back here, who is representing the owner of the property, requesting that the property at the corner of Turkeyfoot and Stevenson be rezoned to allow some sort of commercial type use. It's about 3/4 of an acre currently is what the property, just a little under that. It's in the R1F zone, which is a single-family residential zone. Then across the street, right on Doris Avenue that goes down off of Stevenson, it's an R1C zone. And it's right up there by where the property, that Bright Future Child Enrichment Center is. So that's the property that we're talking about. Just a little past history. Some of you all may remember when the road was being done. When was that done? Back in the early 2000s, I guess, when the Turkeyfoot and Stevenson was widened. The owners came into a council meeting and requested that the city look at possibly changing that to allowing some sort of commercial use. And at that time, the council mentioned to them that Yeah, if that becomes a 5-lane road and Stevenson Road is a 4 or 5, if that intersect 4 or 5 lanes at the intersection, then possibly the complexion of that area changed and possibly it would be a place that could be commercial. So enter the owners now of the property who had just purchased the property back then to build the Child and Bright Futures up there. So at this point, they're just asking if council would be amenable to allowing or to look into some sort of commercial use on that property. They're not talking anything like I told them that, you know, I know that at the time, those years ago, that it was mentioned that some kind of small commercial might be okay, like a bank branch or something of those lines, not like a bar and grill or you know, anything like that, but something like that. So their thing is here is just to see if you all would entertain the idea of changing the zone of some sort to allow some sort of commercial if they came back with you with something that you would like.
Well, this is the property that is together with the childhood development or whatever that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's a vacant lot about right at the corner up there.
Oh, it's on the, like the front?
It's right in front of the center.
My only concern is that intersection, and I think these guys in the uniform here can attest, it's a horrible intersection. You have to be really careful. People go through red lights there.
Yeah.
And that's the only concern I would have, would be a safety concern, if we could address that.
Well, they're,
Whatever, because red lights, first of all, which is illegal, but I mean, if you have curb cuts there.
well, you're right, and those things could be addressed during the time, making them use the existing curb cuts that are there, either the ones that, you know, so that they're possibly that could be done with the new user, that they could use the same curb cuts are there without having to add any new ones at that intersection. But those are sort of some of the things that would go on during the planning if it got that far.
I have no problem with that whatsoever, as long as we have say-so what goes in there. I mean, I wouldn't want to change the zone to something, and all of a sudden they come in there and they say, okay, this fits in that zone, we're gonna put that there, and we don't want that there. So I have no problem with them coming back to us and saying, we have a bank that wants to go in there, or something that would fit in that small area.
And
I talked to you earlier about, like you just did, they go coming in and out. I mean, we don't want them to come out that front way and turn left on Turkey Foot to go north, trying to cross 5 lanes of highway. You know, we'd let her have them come down Stevenson Road and then make that left at the light, and vice versa. Taking a right and going out to Turkey Foot South wouldn't be an issue, but to try to cross that lane, that highway in the morning and rush hour or something like that is almost, you know, take your life in your own hands. But I wouldn't have a problem with knowing what's going in there. I wouldn't want to be surprised if we would change the zoning and then all of a sudden they'd throw something up in there we don't want in there.
Well, no, it would certainly be your all's decision. I mean, this is just saying that, yes, if you're in favor, that, yeah, you would look at it, and they would have to come back and request that you all do a text amendment, that we file an application with the Planning Commission to do a text amendment, to add that use to the list of uses, or completely do a map amendment and change the zone. As I said, this is just 3/4 of an acre at this particular point. They need a minimum of 5 acres to have a freestanding zone if you wanted to make it a whole commercial zone. So they would have a little work to do in seeing if some of the neighbors would want to be part of this or not. They may say no, and they would never get the 5 acres, and it'd be a moot point. So, you know, you all have the hold the cards.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, even though it's a 5-lane highway, superstructure, it is a neighborhood.
It's got quite a bit of residential on 3 sides of it. You're right, or 4 sides of it. Yes.
Absolutely.
So it would be something that you all would have to look at.
And I'm with Vicki. I'm deeply concerned about the safety, so I think police and fire should be very involved.
So Is it okay if they would look at something like that and bring it back to you all if they come up with a user? Okay. Okay. All righty. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Okay, the second thing we have on the agenda is recreation vehicles. As you remember, we decided to change that ordinance from only letting them park their vehicles for 8 months. We're gonna go ahead and let them be there for the whole 12 months, and I'll let Mark talk on this now.
As a matter of fact, we had discussed this issue before, and I think our recommendation coming back from the codes enforcement officers, and you saw the citizens that came here and requested that we take away that 4 months, and it's basically 4 months. I think the way it reads now is maybe it's April 15th to October 31st or November 1st. We even extended it a little bit. So the point was, what do we gain? If we're allowing people to park them in that driveway for those 8 months, why wouldn't we allow them to do it for 12 months? What if we're allowing it at any point in time? Some of the history behind that was at one point in time, you couldn't do it at all. It had to be, on the side or in the rear. That changed when people came, and this one came too. So our suggestion would be, because it's too hard to grandfather people in. We've seen that in the past, and all those people that when we changed it last time were the ones that are complaining because they got taken out of that grandfather clause. Yeah. So those are the ones that it affected the most. They're the ones that are requesting this change. Talking to the codes enforcement officers, they believe that it would be easier just to do away with that and just allow it. If you're going to allow it for 8 months, why not allow it for 12? What do you gain? So that would be our suggestion. I know that Mr. Wickman had already prepared that change to the ordinance before we got into everything that we got into in the last couple months. So that is already there and exists. The other part of the change that we would request to that, we heard it from some residents that came in here before, the garbage cans and what we have done. And that's all part of that same ordinance, by the way, that nuisance ordinance. The garbage cans, before we had our ordinance, they were on the rear of your house. You couldn't have them even on the side. We changed it when we adopted the new one a few years ago to allow people to have them on their side. Now what we are finding is there are several people that don't have the ability to get them to the side of their house. Especially our elderly residents are having a very difficult time doing that, whether it be the slope of their yard and the way their house is situated and things like that. So talking back to the codes people, codes officers again, and looking at this and thinking, what are we trying to accomplish? What we wanted to accomplish was we don't want unsightly garbage cans sitting in front of people's houses, and that's just detriment to the neighborhoods. So the suggestion that we'd like to make is that they are screened or concealed somehow with some kind of lattice work or something, whatever that screening may be. It could be bushes, shrubbery, to do that. But as long as they are screened from view and you can't see them from the street, then our suggestion would be to change it that way, and that may help some of those residents that just cannot get it to the side of their house or to the rear of their property. So that would be, that's the next thing on there. Mr. Dunhoff, I'm sorry. Jump to the other one, but those are the two things. Because we had already talked about the recreational vehicle one before, unless there is some dissension about not doing that now, changing.
Does that include boats?
And you're allowed one, ma'am, the way it's written right now. You can have one. It's boats, trailers, and or RVs, and it's only one that you're allowed. Just one trailer.
About it. Yes, I don't personally have a problem with the garbage cans being in the front of the house, even without the coverings. I drive up and down the streets and can't tell the difference between whether it's the side of the house or the front of the house.
That's true.
In many cases, because of just the way that houses are situated, and if it's on an angle on a lot or whatever, I don't know. It technically is, I guess, the side of the house, but it's the front of the house to me.
Well, you say that, and we've had those situations come up where, in fact, those corner houses and those kind of things, those guys deal with that a lot. Well, it's here. Well, no, that's the front of your house. Well, no, that's the corner. As a matter of fact, I even think we had to write a definition as to what was the front of the house. So, yeah.
And
right.
My only concern is that they're, away from the street, and they're not hanging out by the street, all week long, because they get blown over and they get into the street.
And that part's still there.
Yeah.
The 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. part of that is still there, I believe, on collection day.
I think whatever we do, it needs to be to the benefit of the codes enforcement officers. You know, I mean, their jobs are hard enough as it is. And we can't be nitpicking about all these little tiny things. They go out and do a job. If they've got a uniform palette of something to follow, then, you know, I'm sure they'll turn an eye once in a while.
Well, and I suspect that they're not, you know, gonna drive around every day of the week looking at every street to see if something's still out.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you get a complaint,
Complaints,
right.
Yeah, you complain, yeah. And I know for a fact that over in Woodland Hills, I have some friends that live over there, and the way their yard is shaped, you can't put it on the side because it's a big hill. So I told those persons, I said, well, you need to call the city and talk to them and see if they can figure out something for you. So I think the covering might work.
Well, and that's what we had talked about, you know, can you look around and can you say, okay, if you come to us and you say that your house, you can't get into the side yard, and then we'd have to go look at it and see, that there's a lot of work if we try to do this on an individual basis, and we just can't do that. That would be impossible for us to do. I know the gentleman that Mr. Blankenship knows that came to the meeting a couple months ago, you know, expressed that same thing in his house too. There's no way that you can do it, and there are a lot of those around. There really are. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, there's some of these groups, like the Boy Scouts, where they do their God and Country Award, like the Girl Scouts, they have programs. There's different groups that are out there to help people that need things. I mean, why can't we work with one of those groups to help somebody put up a two-sided thing to block their garbage cans? It can't be that hard.
Well, I would think we could, once we identify who that is. Right.
Yeah.
I would think we could try to make those connections when, in fact, we identify who those people are. And ask for that, absolutely.
That could be a project for somebody that could, you know, I just think that would be great.
The highway,
So we have that.
Yeah. So we could go ahead and have that nuisance ordinance amended and ready.
Thank you for our first reading.
End of my agenda.
All right, thank you. Just a quick note on going back to the administration. I just wanted to make a comment, you know, remind everybody that we've got the waste collection bids are coming up here. They're due on March 23rd, just so you guys know that. And I don't know if anybody other than administration would be interested in being involved with the bid opening, but just let us know. There are a couple things here that I wanted to discuss, just to, again, trying to open up lines of communication and maybe even get a little bit of advice from council as far as where some of these things should be directed, or if it even makes sense to direct them to committees. One would be, Mr. Hahn and I sat in an OKI meeting today. The SNK, which is the Surface Transportation Cabinet of Northern Kentucky, they've got grant money that's available, some pretty substantial grant money that's available. And it would seem like it may fit with several different projects that Erlanger's planning. One would be in conversations with some of the developers that are looking at the Showcase Cinema site. One of the issues that they're running against is the Houston Road extension beyond Commonwealth.
Right.
They need that road widened and improved in order to be able to get the traffic to what they're planning there. I mean, almost that whole 140-acre site, they're looking at building it out with. I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands of cars that would be going down through there.
Right.
And they're saying they're having a tough time trying to sell that for development if the road leading to it doesn't fit.
I can believe that, sure.
So the timeline on that, when does the grant due? April 24th, yeah. And there is a ton of information that's needed for that. And I think it would be beneficial if we could have a committee that could be working with Mr. Hahn and Ed Bailey to try to develop that grant. Is there anybody that would be interested?
Might I suggest that you put Jim on that committee, Mr. Viox? Oh,
Yeah, you're right, absolutely.
Yes.
He would need to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who do you have any plan on who's gonna write the grant?
Ed Bailey's got, go
I
ahead.
know we got two people, one person in the police department, one in the fire department, can write tremendous grants.
Yeah, the fire
Yes.
department,
You know, I use either one of them.
Dave
'cause they're
McQuarrie is really
grants.
good at grant
Right, and then the
writing.
other guy,
Ed is working on some of those same projects now as we speak. This is just a new grant, and I'm sure that Ed would, you were talking about some of the preliminary things that have been done for that, and there has been some preliminary work that Mr. Viox has done, and I mean, you all remember seeing the video from even years ago up and those kind of things. So we have all those resources available.
Okay, good.
And just to let you know, we don't ever turn down money.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of cities that were there, a lot of people who are anxious to
I'm
file for these
sure.
grants, so
I'm
it's
sure,
pretty, it's gonna be pretty competitive. And it's a tight timeline. Another one that I thought could be an interesting project to turn to committee would be a design contest for the Norfolk Southern overpass.
Oh, thank you.
Now, this is something that, you know, if we do the lead remediation from that bridge and we repaint it, it is a huge price tag. What have we said in the past, $500,000?
Oh, easily, yes.
In the conversations with Norfolk Southern, they've said that they will take no responsibility for the aesthetics of that bridge. But they do not care if we do something to it. If we want to paint it, if we want to take it upon ourselves, or if we want to do something to that.
5 years ago.
We've heard that for years.
So,
My concern is the structure. Have you looked at that?
Well, it's
yeah,
also
and
lead.
we,
It's stuck under there. I mean, the concrete's actually falling apart.
Right.
And then my husband and I had a discussion, is there lead paint
Yes.
involved?
Oh,
There
yes,
is.
there
Yeah.
is.
And that's against the law. But here's the problem. Once you attack the railroad for that lead paint, they are gonna come after us. We're gonna be in big trouble. But that's, yeah, they can want that. That's gotta be removed.
yeah,
And then they gotta repaint it because they've removed that, right?
yeah, they're still not going to take any kind of responsibility there.
No.
And rightfully